We are starting Chapter 6, our polynomial unit, and as usual, at the beginning of a new unit, we have a lot of vocab words. So as a reminder, these are all on the PDF on my website. If you don't want to copy this all down, just go ahead and download that into Notability. So the first several terms you should be familiar with, and easy way to remember what each of these terms mean is to just look at the prefix for each word. So mono means one, a monomial is a single term. Any constant or multiplication of constants and variables will give you a monomial. Bi means two, binomial is two terms. Tri means three, quad means four. So the definitions of those should be fairly straightforward. Polynomial, there are several characteristics that a polynomial cannot have. So the first is fractional, decimal, or negative exponents. So when you're looking at the variable, it must have a whole number for an exponent. Variables under a radical or in an absolute value will not be a polynomial function, as well as variables in the denominator or variables in the exponent. All of those are things that polynomials cannot have. Standard form is when you order the polynomial using descending exponents, meaning the first term has the highest power and then it goes in order down to the constant. We've talked about coefficients, hopefully you remember that is the number that's multiplied by the variable. And we'll be using the leading coefficient a lot as we did with our quadratic unit. That's the coefficient of the term with the highest power, or when your answer is in standard form, it's the coefficient of your first term. And finally, we're going to be taking a look at degree. And the degree of the polynomial is the largest exponent or sum of exponents on a single term. Now, for the most part, the polynomials we will be looking at will only have one variable, but if you do see a polynomial where variables are being multiplied, that is okay, it's still a polynomial, you just add those exponents to get the degree. So some names for some common degrees we'll be looking at. If the polynomial has 0 degree, it is a constant function, meaning either a horizontal or a vertical line. First degree is a linear function, so x plus 2. Second degree, we just went a whole unit looking at the quadratics, looks like a parabola. Third degree is when you have a cubic function. I've heard some students call it a snake. Let me sketch a quick picture of a cubic function. And then as the power gets higher, they start to look similar. So a fourth degree is a quartic. It can either be in the shape of a parabola or a W, depending on the function. Fifth degree looks like a cubic function, it's just skinnier. All right, so the first thing we're going to be doing is identifying the degree of different monomials. So if there's only one variable, the exponent is the degree. Looking at example A, we have more than one variable, so we're going to skip to step 2. If there's more than one variable, add the exponents together. So the exponent on our x is 2, exponent on our y is 3, so the degree of our monomial is 5. Steps 1 and 2 don't apply to B because there are no variables. Step 3, if there is no variable, the degree is 0. So think about, you could have negative 6 times x to the 0 power. The degree is always the power on the variable. But of course, in simplest form, you won't see a variable on a degree 0. Finally, part C, this is our step 1. If there's only one variable, the exponent is a degree, so this has a degree of 16. We're going to be looking at writing each polynomial in standard form. So remember, that is when the highest power is first and the smallest power is last. So looking through, my 8 and 8/10 x to the 8th has the highest power. Then we've got a cubed term and a squared term. So that was step 1. And then answering the other questions, identify the lead coefficient. Remember, that's the coefficient of your term with the highest power. So my leading coefficient is 8 and 8/10. Then we're looking at the degree. Remember, the degree is the exponent on the first term once it's in standard form, or the highest power. So my first term has a degree of 8. Number of terms, just count. We've got 3 terms. So when we're naming our polynomial, it is 8th degree trinomial because it has 3 terms. And we won't be giving specific names when the power is greater than 4, 5. 5 is quintic, we know up to that. And then beyond that, we would just use the number to name it. All right, so let's repeat that with our next example. This is not in standard form, so we're going to go ahead and rearrange it with our cubed power first, and then our squared term. Make sure that you keep the negative sign in front of the correct term. Now we need to identify the lead coefficient. We're multiplying our first term by -4. The degree is the power on our first term, which is 3. Number of terms, we have 2 terms, which makes it a binomial. So to name it, we use the power, which is 3, so that makes it a cubic function. And there were 2 terms, so it's a binomial. So a cubic binomial. I've got one more example, and this will be quick, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it on the same video. Combining like terms. We have done this many times. Maybe we have higher powers now, but it's the same process that we've seen before. If you're subtracting, distribute the negative sign. In our first example, we're adding, so we don't have a negative sign to distribute, so we just combine like terms. Always give your answer in standard form. So as I combine like terms, I'm going to look for the highest power first so that I can do steps 2 and 3 at the same time. So I've got a 2x to the 4th and no like terms to combine it with. We've got a 5x cubed, no like terms to combine it with. Negative 10x squared, and we have a positive x squared, which gives us negative 9x squared. And then a minus 5x and plus 1 gives us our answer in standard form. So looking at that one more time with our next one, this time we are subtracting. It's much easier to add than subtract, so distribute that negative sign. Make everything in the second set of parentheses opposite. And then do the same thing we did on part A, combine our like terms. My highest power I see is 3x squared plus a negative x squared, which gives me a 2x squared. And then I see negative 5x plus negative x, which is negative 6x. And then finally my positive 4. And your U-try problem.